and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. Today's Thriver TV episode is a really important one. Maybe it's one of the most important ones I've ever done, because depression can affect so many people. So many people struggle with it. And all of us, I believe, have been touched by depression in some way. We may have suffered with depression ourselves, or we know of someone else who gets struck down by the black dog, which, if you haven't heard that expression before, it's one to describe depression. So what is depression and how does it affect us? Most of us have experienced depression as overwhelming feelings of despair and helplessness, and feelings like, well, what's the use? And when it strikes, it's excruciatingly difficult to even carry out normal everyday functions. It may be so bad that we don't want to get out of bed. And maybe we lose the ability to care and look after ourselves. In this Thriver TV episode today, I will reveal to you things that you may not have realised about depression, as well as how to heal it for real forever, in order to become a person living free of depression rather than battling it continuously. Frighteningly, depression seems to be increasing, and as a world, what is great is that we recognise depression. But what isn't great is that there's all sorts of ways apparently to try to manage depression, but very few people are talking about what is really causing depression and how to treat that, so that people can truly be released from its painful grip. I want you to know that I was a person who battled depression. I battled it before narcissistic abuse. I came from a family background of depression. My mother has struggled with it. I had aunts on my father's side who were plagued with it. And like many of us in this community, I was in the bowels of hell with it during and after narcissistic abuse. My heart goes out to you if you're still in this battle. And maybe you felt like I did, that the depression was so terrible and so hard to overcome that life wasn't worth living anymore. What I didn't know at the time when I was struck down by terrible depression was that I was battling it the wrong way. And in fact, much of what I was doing was making the depression worse and not better. In fact, my battle with myself nearly took me to my death. Now today, my life is completely different. I'm still human. I can still get triggered with stress and anxiety if I put too much on my plate and things don't fall into place. Yet I have not one skerrick of depression. I promise you that is the truth. And not one skerrick of having to try to manage it. So let's get right into it, and I hope you're all ears, because I know that if you're struggling with depression, this truth will set you free. And I want to make today's Thriver episode really dynamic, and I've never done this before, but this is what I really love to do. So if you feel like depression is an issue for you, I want you to pause this video right here and go get a notepad and pen, because we're going to workshop this together. There's going to be stuff to write. And I want you to write what I ask you to write down, and then you can take extra notes if you like as well. And of course, you can go back through this video as many times as you wish after watching it to pick up even more information. Okay, so you've done that. And I want you to start by writing, I am suffering depression and I love myself anyway. This is our starting point, and it's really important. For this reason, you have to get real in order to heal. You have to be honest with yourself. What happens when your car gets bogged in the mud and you put your foot down on the accelerator and you try to ignore what just happened? You dig yourself down into the mud deeper. Yet what happens when you get out of the car assess the situation honestly and calmly and accept it. You're on your way to getting out. Emotional negativity is the same. We can't just ignore it, self-abandon it, and shame and blame it away ever. One of the biggest quantum laws about your life is this one. There is nothing that you can ever change in your life if you don't accept it and love yourself regardless, despite it. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but I'm going to prove it to you. I want you to think about what has been happening when you've been trying to tell yourself that you're not depressed, or whatever your name is, just get over it, or what have you got to be depressed about, or I'm so sick of being depressed. And possibly you've tried to criticize, shame, or pummel yourself into shape to snap yourself out of the funk. Many people who have depression are not lazy people. Maybe you've been saying 30 positive affirmations a day or reading every inspirational book and quote you could get your hands on. Is it helping? No. In fact, it could be making matters worse because you're in your ditch, putting your foot on the accelerator, digging yourself in deeper. Why? Because you are not validating and loving yourself. Which I will explain to you in point blank terms in this video, is the real reason that you're depressed. And you're making matters so much worse by unknowingly invalidating and abusing yourself further with the most self-destructive words we can ever say to ourselves. You don't have that, and just get over it, whatever it is. Now let's get back to the statement you wrote. I want you to look at it again. I'm suffering from depression and I love myself anyway. Now I want you to write under that, I love myself enough to get to the bottom of why I'm suffering depression. I love myself enough to get to the bottom of why I'm suffering depression and to heal myself from that. Okay, write that down. Now let's look closely at this. There is only one reason we have depression. It's because we're not accepting something about ourselves, life, or others right now, and we are not loving and accepting ourselves regardless of the circumstances. This is a complete blasphemy regarding life, existence, consciousness, God, whatever your version of a higher power is. Because within this higher power, there is nothing that happens that is not in perfect and divine order, regardless of how it seems. And there is no condition ever required from you in order to be loved. What could all that is require from you in order to love you? Nothing. It already is all that is. And from a place of not accepting what is, no matter how it looks, as not accepting it as a glorious perfection that is allowing us to learn to truly love ourselves, life, and others unconditionally and heal and grow from something, we're stuck in a ditch, digging ourselves in deeper. Depression means we've missed this. And depression will not leave us alone until we get it and heal ourselves towards this fundamental truth. So what is it that you've not accepted as a perfect opportunity to love yourself? What is it that is ironically the perfect path to evolve and set yourself free that you're stuck at, that you're not getting and you're not stepping onto? Because when you do get this and apply it, you will have the power to shift what is, only because you've made peace with it first and loved yourself regardless. Remember the absolute quantum law. We cannot change anything until we accept it and love and accept ourselves within it. In other words, when we do that, we start emulating the laws of life force creation, consciousness, God, whatever your understanding of a higher power is, by accepting at a deep cellular level everything is in perfect and divine order no matter how it seems, and I have the power to love and accept myself unconditionally right now in this situation. Okay, so now we're going to write that down. And I really want you to open your body and feel it as you write it. So let's start with the first bit. Everything is in perfect and divine order, no matter how it seems. And I have the power to accept and love myself right now in this situation. How does that feel in your body? Many of you may already be feeling a somatic inner feeling of relief. And this is your inner being, the wise, true part of you, sighing with relief. Thank goodness you're heading home to me now. Okay, so let's look at some practical applications of something in your life that you're not accepting as a wonderful opportunity to turn inwards and love and accept yourself right now. Maybe, as an example, you're overweight and you believe that the people you are attracted to aren't attracted to you. You're going without love. Your almighty soul, which is only interested in your growth and evolution, is bringing you this glorious experience to teach you unconditional love for yourself. When you drop the conditions and you love yourself right now, weight and all, as is, then you will do what a self-loving person does. You will eat healthily. You will exercise. You will stop drinking so much alcohol, which is in stark contrast of when you hate your weight and you feel horrible shame and unworthiness, you will act out like a person who feels depressed does. You will do isolation from others and self-punishment. Times of severe food deprivation, grueling exercise, followed by binge eating. Making unhealthy choices that are the attempts to self-medicate the inner shame, unworthiness and feelings of failure. Choices such as unhealthy food, smoking, gambling, drinking, sex with unhealthy people, which in effect are all attempts to self-medicate the trauma of depression, the non-acceptance of your situation and not unconditionally loving yourself right now. This one I'm about to share was huge for me, the depression of losing one's finances. I was in a deep black hole, which I thought I would never dig myself out of after narcissistic abuse. I didn't want to accept that at 40 years of age, everything that I'd obsessively worked for my whole life and all of the sacrifices I'd made had come to nothing. And that now my health was so destroyed that I would not be able to go on and rebuild. The non-acceptance of what was happening and my ensuing depression nearly killed me. When I had my awakening, thank goodness, and saw the soul evolution lesson as clear as crystal, I emerged accepting the gloriousness of my situation. To love myself minus chattels and the need to have security or worth in the way of currency. To love myself as I was for the first time ever, despite being financially broke, personally damaged, and mentally and emotionally deranged. What I found, even in the midst of intense trauma, was the greatest wholeness and peace I'd ever known. And the incredible relief of knowing I was lovable and worthy of life and love simply for being me. I'd come home. The depression was gone. Even though I still had a lot of healing of my inner trauma to do, I still had a lot of traumatic, post-traumatic stress disorder conditions, but the depression was gone. No longer did I have any conditions on loving myself. I was already free, and everything from here would simply be a bonus. From this place of pure acceptance and deep gratitude for the situation, I rebuilt my health, life, and financial worth in ways that were unprecedented and miraculous. And it started happening in record time because I started making choices that an integrated, inwardly peaceful person does. For the first time in my life, no longer was I motivated by fear and pain. No longer did I need outer things to love myself. And rather, the new ways to generate my life was simply an outpour of loving myself. Because I was flourishing from within, life started flourishing and nourishing me back in abundance. Now, I want you to be honest with yourself because you know the answer. What is it in your life about yourself or something that you are going through individually or with another person or your family, etc.? What is it that you are not accepting as a glorious opportunity to come home to you and unconditionally love yourself? What is it? Maybe it's a narcissistic person in your life who you want to stop hurting you, destroying your life, and love you instead. Where haven't you accepted what is with this person that is organized by your soul as the perfect opportunity to turn inwards and love yourself more? Maybe it's the utter despair of never being able to have a healthy relationship that is the cause of your depression. So I want you to connect to yourself honestly and openly and write this down. The thing that I am not accepting and I'm using to withhold love from myself right now is, what's the answer? You know what it is. And it may be more than one thing. And I want you to pause this video if you really need to connect to this. Okay, so now let's go deeper. Your natural organic state is not conditional love. You took this on from someone else who was also taught to not unconditionally accept life or love themselves. This stuff got handed down and down and down through the generations. Your natural state is unconditional love. The flow of life force, creation, consciousness, your understanding of a higher power. Because you are a seed of that. You are, in fact, that itself. And when you're not being who you are as your true self, accepting what is as a perfect opportunity to love yourself more, then you are in total opposition to creation. That is exactly what depression is, because you're being anti-life instead of life force. So who and what taught you conditional love? Think of your issues such as body image. Who or what gave you the message that you were only lovable if you looked a certain way? Whose unconditional love and approval did you want when you were little and couldn't get it no matter how hard you tried? Maybe like me, your depression struggle was with your financial state. Who or what made you believe that what you achieved and what your results were was what made you lovable and acceptable? Whose unconditional love and acceptance, despite what you did or didn't achieve, wasn't forthcoming, no matter how much you craved it and tried to prove yourself for to get it? Now, I want you to write down, I learned not to unconditionally accept and love myself from others who also learned this from others. Conditional love and acceptance is not my natural state. Now continue to write this. As a child, I craved unconditional love from whoever it was, and you have to get really honest and vulnerable with yourself here. Be really, really truthful. Feel it and connect to that part of yourself that missed out. Okay, we'll continue. Write this. But now, as an adult, my cries of depression from within are a call for me to turn inwards and grant that unconditional love to myself. So make sure you've written that down. So now I want you to think about this. Right now is when you especially need and deserve your own love the most. Now let's look at the next step. You may say to me, Melanie, this is all good and well. I get where you're coming from, but how on earth am I just gonna love myself when my head is pounding with anxiety, flashbacks and memories of trauma, or thoughts of powerlessness and that I'm a failure? And when I have constant trauma coursing through my body, isn't loving myself just another affirmation that I'm trying to force myself to believe? How on earth do I just love myself? I promise you, I understand all of this. Those were my questions too. And I couldn't just love myself either, no more than anyone can park a brand new shiny car in a garage when a rusty old wreck is blocking the path. Most of us, when suffering from depression, can't just put ice cream on top of poop. We had to realize the trauma first from our inner being, the toxic pain and the fear and the helplessness, the feelings of failure and self-disgust. All of the trauma of abuse, not feeling loved and approved of when we were little, just as we were, the being told to get on with it, the being loved with conditions that made us feel like we always had to earn our worth and value. And now, because we aren't performing perfectly, we feel totally worthless and like we don't deserve to exist. It's about releasing all of that, because we've been beating ourselves up with even more conditional love that set this up in the first place. So we have to release all of those traumas, which are all the real reasons we're depressed. And we can find, load up and release every single one of them with Quantum Freedom Healing. Because in the NARP program, you learn how to do that. You learn how to let it all go up and out of your body like bursting and releasing the pus from a cyst, so that the pain ends and the healing begins. And then you will easily become your true organic state of seeing and knowing all the perfection of your journey and loving yourself regardless. That's how it happened for me. The more toxic crap that left my body, the more I filled with creation, life force, and joy. It happened naturally. It does for everyone who cellularly releases their trauma, because this is who we are without the trauma. Get this, all depends on one thing, and again, it gets back to unconditional love, the true nature of creation itself. Ironically, your life working depends on one condition, which is the only condition of your life. Emulating how creation life force sees you, which is worthy of being and engaging in all of life without conditions. So you can't be doing the inner healing work with the NARP program as a condition to finally accepting and loving yourself. Because then it's going to feel like a chore and urgency and painful to do. And no matter how much you do it, you won't start loving and accepting yourself. It needs to be an expression of loving yourself right now. And then it works beautifully, as it did for me and thousands of other thrivers in this community. Okay, so finally, I want you to write this down. I love myself enough to meet my inner wounds with presence, devotion, and fascination. I love myself enough to load them up and release them from my inner being. I love myself enough to set myself free. So breathe that in and out and feel it. And you might need to go back and make sure you've got all of that and you've written it down. Really feel it. Pause this video and feel it. So what do you believe about your depression now? What I believe is this. It's the signal to the next most incredible version of you. And I want you to read back over what you wrote down about depression, because it's the absolute truth of why you have depression, and it's also the true way to heal yourself from it. And I want you to feel it and read it and know it. And then the rest is truly up to you. So come over to the blog at blog.melanietonyevans.com and let's have a conversation about this. It's a very, very important conversation. And I so hope that this has helped. So until the next episode, keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving, because there is nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.